Down south, folks know how to cook up the kind of grub that has people holding out their plates for more. Savory barbecued pork, juicy fried chicken, and crackling cornbread are all distinctly Southern dishes. But to the American South, food is more than fuel for the body. It's part of a rich culture that began with the African slave trade and life on the Southern plantation. In order to tell the full story of Southern food, let's begin on Southern soil. Here's how I define the region I refer to as the South. On the Atlantic coast, you have Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Further inland, Kentucky and Tennessee. The Gulf states include Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and parts of East Texas. The earliest known inhabitants of the South are Native Americans who knew quite well how to live off the land. They hunted wild game and fished for oysters, shrimp, and catfish. When European settlers arrived in the Americas, they brought over pigs and chickens. The animals thrived, and as a result, pork and chicken became two essential ingredients in Southern cooking. Southern food also draws its distinct flavor from the African-American culture. Once slaves were brought to the States in the early 1600s, African culture would reshape Southern food. Traditionally, African-American men worked in the fields and women were in charge of the kitchen. It was one of the few places female slaves could express their imagination and creativity. Plantation cooks infused their dishes with imported spices and used foods from their native lands. Collard greens, black-eyed peas, and watermelon are all traditional Southern fare, and each one can be traced back to Africa. Slave food was limited on the plantation. They were only given animal parts the plantation owner didn't want, like organs, hooves, and feet. So the slaves developed ways to transform these unwanted parts into savory dishes. They added smoked neck bones and ham hocks to greens and stews to take away bitterness and add flavor. Salt pork and fatback were used to prepare vegetables and meat. African Americans began using the term soul food in the late 1960s to describe the typical Southern dishes passed down by their ancestors. It was an effort to reclaim the African American heritage that somehow never made it into the history books. This cultural awakening ignited a nationwide trend, and restaurants sprang up all over the country serving traditional Southern fare. My quest to sample some authentic down-home Southern cooking took me to Paschal's in Atlanta, Georgia. James Paschal opened the landmark restaurant 55 years ago with his late brother Robert. In the 60s, it was the meeting place for famous civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Jesse Jackson. Today, they serve up the same Southern favorites the old-fashioned way. As you would expect from people known for their hospitality, the folks at Paschal's graciously invited me to an honest-to-goodness down-home Southern feast. I met Chef Clarence, Paschal's head chef, who gave me a peek at the savory dishes Paschal's is famous for. I was bombarded by the smell of savory dishes like fried catfish, black-eyed peas, and candied yams. Now, first of all, is this a sweet potato? Is it a yam, or is it a...
It's a sweet potato.
Oh, it's sweet.
It is
but we're calling it a candied yam.
Candied yam because of the ingredient that put in.
But it's not a yam.
No, it's not. It's sweet potato, but when you get through putting the ingredient in, it becomes candied yam. It becomes candied yam.
Now, here's the question I'd been dying to ask. What is collard greens? What are they exactly?
Well, you know, collard greens in the family with kale, cabbage. Now, I don't know how true it is that it has some kind of remedy in there to cure cancer. I don't know how
collard
true
greens?
it is. Collard greens.
It's an anti-carcinogen?
That's what I read about it.
Turns out it is true. Collard greens contain a ton of antioxidants which are known to prevent cancer. It may not be as good for the body, but there's no doubt macaroni and cheese is good for the soul. Now, at my house, macaroni and cheese, you get it in a box, it's perforated, you rip it open, and you make it.
That ain't macaroni and cheese.
No, it's not, is
That's
it?
not macaroni.
Clearly, I had a lot to learn, but luckily, Clarence didn't hold that against me. We're like best friends.
Oh, we are.
I do feel that.
Yeah,
I
my
wish we
first
grew
time
up
meeting you.
together.
I mean, oh, we
Could
would
you
have had a good
imagine
time.
that?
Oh, God, man.
We would laugh all day.
All day long.
Since I'm so chummy, I thought maybe I could get him to spill a few ingredients from Paschal's highly guarded fried chicken recipe.
Even if I knew it, I wouldn't give it up.
But you do know it.
I can't give it out.
But you know it. Okay, so I guess we aren't that close. But that was fine with me, because dinner was on the table and I was ready to dig in. In honor of Southern hospitality, I wanted to make a good impression. If everybody wants to pass me a plate, I can serve them a piece of chicken. Would you like to do that way? Does that sound good? Yep.
Yeah.
Sitting here surrounded by scrumptious food and friendly faces, I couldn't help but wonder, where does Southern hospitality come from? What if you're just about finished cooking and your daughter or your son brings like an entourage with him or her and you didn't expect it, you might not have enough food. Would you go, you know what, I just don't have any space at the table?
In the Southern household, you will find something, trust me.
That summed it up for me. Whether it's friends, family, or people you don't even know, you can be sure there's something delicious waiting for you in a Southern kitchen. Stay right there. We're fixing to take down home cooking into the 20th century when we come back.